Hello! You might think the app from the previous video is completed and it's also useful and perfect. I could agree with you, but there is no limit to perfection and we are gonna continue to upgrade Selfenger. Prepare your coffee, here we go!
Oh shit, here we go again.
Open our Selfenger app, which we've made in the previous video. What do we need to do in the storyboard? First, we delete the label. Instead of labels, we are gonna use simple message bubbles. Secondly, we add a navigation controller to our app. We will use it in next videos, but now we are gonna use it just like a decoration. Finally, we add a table view. There are many ways to create a messenger interface. We can also create it by UI collection view, but today we use UITableView. They are almost the same. Add top, leading, trailing, bottom constraints which equal 0 to the table view. UITableView uses cells. We drag one for this table view. In Attributes Inspector of chosen TableView cell, we need to give an identifier for it. Identifier helps to set up the cell later. Let's call it message cell. Next, we define a size of the cell. It will be number 49. Number 9. After that, we add UI view into the cell. We are gonna turn this view into a bubble. For UI view, let's add top, bottom, and trailing constraints to cells bounds. Message bubbles appear on opposite sides of the screen. Later, we need to add dynamic leading and trailing constraints to that view programmatically. For avoiding all warnings, we leave trailing constraint in the storyboard but choose the option remove at the build time. Also, add the width constraint to UI view that equals to width of the cell and multiply it by 0.7. Choose less than or equal. Now the maximum width of the view depends on the width of the cell, and it will be always less because we multiplied the width of the background view by 0.7. Change the color of the view. The last thing is to add UI label into the bubble view. A label shows messages as usual. Add constraints for it. 6 for top and bottom constraints. 14 for leading and trailing constraints. Change the color of the label. White color looks good. In the Attributes Inspector, we are adding dynamic font size option for the label. Change the font type to body and tick automatically adjust font. It's useful for people which have chosen large font size in system preferences. The font size in the app will be changed according their choice. Set the title of navigation item as you want. May the title be named Messages? Sure. Go to the Alt View controller. Delete useless label outlet. Clean view did load. What about messages array? Let's apply MVC pattern. Create a new Swift file. It will be our model data for each message. Name it message data and save in the project folder. In that file, we make extract message data. Declare two let constants. The first is text of the type string, and the second is the first user of the type bool. We are gonna use it instead of the constant use first attribute from the first video. We go back to the view controller and update the messages array. Now it needs to have a type message data instead of an s-mutable attributed string. Create some instance of message data in messages array as a template with random text. Delete everything we don't need in our button function, and copy-paste message data instance in array. Change everything inside of each instance, just random text, and change values in property isFirstUser from true to false, alternating them. Delete attributes for an S-attributed string because we don't need them. Almost done.
Wow!
We need to set UITableViewCell up. Create a new Coco touch class. It's gonna be a subclass of UITableViewCell. Name the class MessageTableViewCell. Create. In Identity Inspector, set the MessageCell class to our new MessageTableViewCell. In the Assistant editor, find that class and by control dragging add an outlet for message background view. Add outlet for message label. Do you remember about dynamic constraints? It's time to use them. Create a variable trailing constraint of the type NSLayout constraint and a variable leading constraint of the same type. Their types have exclamation marks because we will initialize that properties later. The next what we are gonna do is to set up the cell by implementing the function updateMessageView. The function takes any message of type message data as an argument and decorates the cell. The simplest thing to do is to make rounded corners. We have to get the access to views corner radius property and set it to maybe 16. Also, we clip the content to views bounds. Here in this function we update our dynamic constraints. Message background view dot trailing anchor dot constraint. First argument is equal to. It needs to be equal to cell's trailing anchor. We can access the cell by using keyword self because we are working in MessageTableViewCell class, and the keyword self means an instance of MessageTableViewCell. Constant equals to number minus 20. Leading anchor equals to message background views leading anchor, and constraint equals to cell's leading anchor with constant 20. Now we can activate and deactivate them when we need. The text property of message label takes a text from a message. Here we use a simple logic. If message is from first user, we set a color of the message background view to UI color that we initialize by using RGBA parameters. Let's come back to the storyboard and choose the first color. That blue color is nice. Remember, the red value equals 53, green 150, and blue 255. Come back to the MessageTableViewCell. Update MessageCell function and write down values of red, green, and blue colors divided by 255.0. The alpha value is a transparency value. 0 means invisible, 1 means visible. Finally, activate trailing constraint and set text alignment of label to right. What about if the message comes from the alter ego? Let's do nothing. Like the video, subscribe the channel. We have to use else keyword. First, copy-paste color setting. Come back to the storyboard and choose color for other user. I mean for the alter ego. Green is fine. Remember its RGB values. Back to the update MessageCell function and set views background color of message background color to green by manipulating its RGB values again. Activate the leading constraint by setting its property is active to boolean value true and set labels text alignment to left. How we can deactivate that leading and trailing constraints? Here we may override prepare for reuse function and clean up all settings before the table view will create and use a cell. Let's set text of message label to nil. deactivate leading constraint by setting its isActive property to false. Do the same for the trailing constraint. Cell is ready, but our view controller is not. Subscribe view controller to UITableViewDelegate, TableViewDataSource, and subscribe yourself to my channel. Oh no, it is an error. Add stops which are required for protocols. For protocols from above. Xcode doesn't know about good code manners and inserts methods on the top of the class. Properties must be on top, methods must be on bottom. Cut and paste them where they should be, at the end. You may use a mark comment and call it TableViewDelegate, just for your comfort. Now you can teleport yourself to that part of the code from the tab. It's useful when your file contains hundreds of lines of the code. Come back to the storyboard, click on the Assistant Editor button and create an outlet for TableView in the view controller. Call it MessagesTableView. In the viewDidLoad method, we need to set MessagesTableViewDelegate property to viewController by using keyword self again. In the viewController class, keyword self means the viewController itself. We also need to set TableViewDataSource property to viewController. Let's work with our new TableView methods. A method with the argument number of row in section gives to the TableView the information how many cells a single section will have. We have only one section in the app, that's why we don't need to do something difficult. Just reach a number of elements of the messages array. MessagesArray.count. Return MessagesArray.count. In the next method, with the argument cell4row_add, we call our updateMessageCell function. Let cell equals to TableView.decure reusable cell with identifier. Here we need to write the identifier of the cell which we've created in the beginning of this video. Come back to the storyboard, copy identifier and paste it here. Message cell. For index path, downcast it to message table view cell. We used force downcast to this type because we are sure we have only one cell with only one identifier that belongs to message table view cell class. And we need to get the access to all properties and methods of message table view cell. Now the constant cell, not just a table view cell, but message table view cell. Call the update function from the cell, cell.update message cell, and get the access to the element of messages array for needed row. Finally, return the cell. To be sure that everything will be shown correctly, let's add a TableView function number of sections and return there 1. Because there is only one section. Run the app. Wait a bit. Everything is almost good, we just need to remove separators between cells. Come back to the main storyboard again. Choose Messages Table View and set separator from default to none. Sometimes there could be some troubles with cell sizes. Not now, but sometimes. For avoiding this problem in the future, let's add 2 methods. First is a TableView method with the argument estimated height for row that returns minimal height of cell number 49 for our message cell. The second method with the argument height for row add. Here we return UITableView.automatic dimension. Now cells will be resized every time when the text will be higher than minimal row height. Let's extend messages array by copying and pasting all elements. Let's update the method messageButtonTouched from the previous video. Change if_let to wordlet because we will need if statement in the future, and let's do that aesthetically. To creating pyramids of if-else statements. Let text from field equals message text field dot text else return. It means just do nothing if you couldn't unwrap text property from the text field. We need to check, isn't an unwrapped text just an empty symbol? We don't use an s attributed string anymore, that's why we need to rename useFirstAttribute variable. By pushing command button and pointing on use first attribute, click on rename in the popover menu. This way of renaming is better because you will rename this property everywhere. Rename it just to isFirstUser. Here we append a new message to messages array. Initialize a new message property which will come from text from field. isFirstUser will get a value from the isFirstUser property in viewController class. Call messagesTableView, begin updates. Insert a row to the table view by this method. Initialize new index path with number of row, which is the last index number of element in messages array, in section 0. We still have one section, but sections enumerated from 0. Choose any animation which you want. I've chosen fade animation. Call messagesTableView and updates. Run the app. This messenger doesn't behave like a messenger. You need to scroll all the bubbles if you want to see a new message. Let's fix it. In the message button touched method, we need to call the function which scrolls a table view automatically to the bottom when a new message appears. MessagesTableView.scroll to row at. Initialize the index path that points to the last row or cell or the last element of array. Messages.count -1 section 0 at top. Animated true. Find a mistake here. Run the app. Mission completed. Ask any question in comments below. Like this video and subscribe. Bye.
I was just looking for the sports channel, Gary.